A thread by Carlos Osuida. Tim Pool, you can't redefine the term Civil War to make it support your argument. We are not wrong, you are. Words have meaning. This thread is in response to Tim Pool's video, Civil War Has Begun, and the media lies to trick you into taking sides. Carlos continues, a civil war is a sustained, high-intensity, intrastate conflict between organized factions, always including the armed forces or a portion thereof. Period. There's no such thing as a cold civil war. Yes, you are fear-mongering. James D. Fearon is the Theodore and Francis Gebel Professor of Political Science at Stanford University. One of his fields of expertise is civil wars. This is his definition. Quote, a violent conflict within a country fought by organized groups that aim to take power at the center or in a region, or to challenge government policies. The Correlates of War is an academic study of the history of warfare begun in 1963 by J. David Singer, University of Michigan. According to this project, a civil conflict must have 1,000 killed in action before it qualifies as a civil war. The International Committee of the Red Cross defines civil war as having the following factors. 1. The party in revolt against the de jure government possesses an organized military force, an authority responsible for its acts, acting with a determinate territory. 2. The legal government sends the regular military forces against insurgents organized as military and in possession of a part of the national territory. 3. The de jure government has recognized the insurgents as belligerents, or the insurgents have claimed for themselves the right of a belligerent, or the de jure government has accorded the insurgents recognition as belligerents, or the dispute has been admitted to the agenda of the Security Council or the General Assembly of the United Nations as being a threat to international peace, a breach of the peace, or an act of aggression. 4. The insurgents have an organization purporting to have the characteristics of a state, or the insurgent civil authority exercises de facto authority over the population within a determinate portion of the national territory, or the insurgent armed forces act under the direction of an organized authority. Nothing we're seeing can qualify as a civil war. Saying we're in a civil war is like calling Donald Trump a fascist. We can't simply junk the definitions of terms because we're having an emotional reaction to something. I'm allowed to buy firearms in California despite being mentally ill. Why? Let me list the criteria that would put me in the mental health-related prohibited category. 1. Inpatient admissions to a mental health treatment facility for dangerousness. From the regulation, quote, a person who has been taken into custody, evaluated, and assessed by mental health professionals, and admitted to a designated mental health facility because that person was found to be a danger to self or others, is generally prohibited from possessing or acquiring firearms for 5 years after their release from the facility. 2. Involuntary mental health or chronic alcoholism treatment. Quote, people who have been certified for intensive treatment are generally prohibited from accessing or acquiring firearms for 5 years. 3. Voluntary inpatient treatment. Quote, people who have been voluntarily admitted to a mental health facility are prohibited from accessing firearms while they are receiving inpatient treatment. 4. Court adjudications of dangerousness. Quote, a person who has been adjudicated to be a danger to others as a result of a mental disorder or mental illness, or who has been adjudicated to be a mentally disordered sex offender, is generally permanently prohibited from accessing or acquiring firearms. 5. court-ordered conservatorship. Quote, a person who is under a court-ordered conservatorship because he or she is gravely disabled as a result of a mental disorder or impaired by chronic alcoholism is prohibited from accessing or acquiring firearms while the conservatorship is in effect. 6. Incompetent to stand trial. Quote, a person who has been found mentally incompetent to stand trial is generally permanently prohibited from accessing or acquiring firearms. 7. Not guilty by reason of insanity. Quote, a person who has been found not guilty by reason of insanity for various enumerated violent felonies is generally permanently prohibited from accessing or acquiring firearms. 8. Threats of physical violence. Quote, a person who has communicated to a licensed psychotherapist a serious threat of physical violence against a reasonably identifiable victim or victims is generally prohibited from accessing or acquiring firearms for 5 years after the therapist reports the threat to law enforcement. Someone filed a bogus threat complaint against me with the FBI, and they came to my house. It was a red flag evaluation. So, I spoke to them for almost an hour, volunteered to show them all my medications, and passed with flying colors. They did a good cop, bad cop. The female got super rude and aggressive. They had to do this. They had been told that I had it in for women, a crazy incel with guns. So, I simply answered without taking offense. They concluded that the accusation was fake. I gave them investment advice, they shook my hand, and I said, you have a job to do, this was a serious accusation, we're good. They thanked me and closed the case right there. My psychiatrist said they never called him. We had to clear it up. Fast. The more time they wasted on me, the easier it would have been for a real nutter to slip through the system. Cops aren't my enemy. I don't care what any lawyer says. I'll always talk to cops voluntarily. I gave them 7 bottles of medication to write down, and I passed a red flag evaluation. I explained each medication and why I took it. I'm now down to 4, by the way. Yes, during the Civil War. So, terms have meaning. You know what's worse than the current disorder? Robbing language of its meaning. That's straight out of Orwell's 1984. The English Socialist Party, INGSOC, deliberately changed the meaning of words so that the oppressed population could not formulate ideas. Concepts became impossible. You're doing that, Tim. Your pride is making you dig in your heels. You always talk about how people make fun of you for saying we're in a civil war. So what? Everyone and his grandmother Edith make fun of me. Who cares? I don't even know these people. Oh no, a perfect stranger says I'm stupid. And? What happened next? Nothing. Get out of my sight. Kidding. We're not in a civil war. There's no such thing as a cold civil war. This is the greatest show on earth. We're watching one of the 2 major political parties explode in a shower of bile and Botox. Statues can be rebuilt. I truly don't understand what people want. The smart thing to do is bide our time and re-elect Trump. All this madness is backfiring, and it's all reversible. Everyone is armed. The fact that we're keeping our heads shows that we're smart. You are one of the few people telling us that all is lost, Tim, and you're a leftist. Conservatives are pissed off, but optimistic. Again, you can't redefine words just because you want to. When my nephew was 5, he changed the rules of games in the middle so he could win. But he was 5. You're not 5. Cheer up. Everything is under control. Think of this as that red flag evaluation I underwent. The cops had to push me. They had to see for themselves if I was a homicidal incel. That's why they sent a hot blonde. I didn't take it personally, and here I am. Watch this guy and relax. He's great. Link in the description.